Welcome to the Skiffy and Fanty Show.
That's how we make our living, with ridiculous restauranting.
I'm Shaun.
I'm Paul.
And today we're joined by celebrated writer and editor Cat Rambo. Their stories have appeared in a variety of places such as Asimov's, Clark's World, the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, and frequently appearing in Best of Collections BT dubs. Their work is across a variety of genres, from literary to thriller to science fiction, slipstream fantasy, magical realism, weird stuff, historically twisty-wisty stuff, humor, which also is in this book a bit too. So Kat is the author of the 3/4 completed Tabat Quartet. Why did Daniel quit?
I just turned in the fourth one.
All right.
Yes.
Perfect. So that's coming. And then on the subject for today, which would be one of the books from the Disco Space Opera series, beginning with You Sexy Thing, continued with Devil's Gun, and now with the book under review today, which is Rumor Has It, which has a spaceship on the cover. So welcome to the show, Kat.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
We're excited. It's actually been a while, I think, since we had you on last.
It's been a while.
A number of years, I think.
Not on purpose.
No. Well, I mean, I think it's the kind of the author or the publicist's responsibility to reach out to podcasts rather than you having to go hunt for guests. So
it's sometimes hard, Kat. It's just sometimes hard. Well, we are super excited to have you here with us today because I have questions about space opera that I want your opinions on. So
awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
But before we get into our discussion with you, Kat, a reminder to our listeners. Please share your comments and questions and suggestions with us about our show at a variety of places on social medias and also on skiffyfandy.com/listener-suggestions. If you aren't already, you can join us on Twitch for Shaun's Alphabet streams every Friday at 7 p.m. Central to be part of our interactive live streaming show. Just like if you're in Twitch right now, that's what you're doing. Great job! Finally, be sure to join our Patreon and be part of our special Patreon-only Discord events on Discord. You can pay us millions, but it only really takes $1 a month.
I mean, if you could pay us millions, I would not have internet problems, let me tell you.
Neither would I, Shaun. Neither would I.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so, Kat, our first question is kind of a big question, which is this book.
Yes.
Give us like a basic idea of what the Disco Space Opera series is, and specifically this book. What is the pitch, as it were?
So the Disco Space Opera series follows the adventures of a group of former mercenaries or space marines, if you will, who are now restaurateurs. They have done various restaurants in various places, and in this particular book, they are going to a place called Coraland, which is a huge hollowed out asteroid or planetoid that is full of these things called confluences, which are just basically gardens. And so they're very excited about getting ingredients of a kind you never found nowhere else in the known universe. And they've also come to Coraland at festival time. So what is already a cool place is like 10 times cooler because there's all sorts of festival stuff going on.
So I have to ask the space opera question, because normally space opera historically is like big space adventures, like bad guys, punchy, blow up things, and very explodey oriented. Even when it gets serious, still lots of explosions are sort of the central focus. But to take a space opera where the adventure is not specifically just those kinds of things, but actually almost like you took space opera and mundane SF, if you remember that, and kind of put them together. How?
So I started writing this series thinking that it was going to be military fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because that was a niche on Amazon, the kind of advice that if you're going to write indie, you should find a niche on Amazon and shoot for it. And I was going to self-publish it. And then my agent said, no, how about I try to sell it? And I was like, oh, okay. And so he did, which was fine. And Tor said it's space opera. And I was actually pretty happy about that because the original idea had been spurred by Ann Leckie saying kind of wistfully in one of my classes, I wish somebody would write a space opera in omniscient point of view.
Ah.
And so for me, space opera is pretty much, it's about spectacle, right? It is about kind of like huge things and space empires, but it's also, I mean, what I've tried to do with it is you're looking at a very small fragment that's sort of moving through all of that panoply and wonder. And it does happen to be a small fragment that is pretty important to the overall universe, as will hopefully play out by the end of the series. But I do love the idea of focusing on a small fragment of the whole in order to show what's going on. It's much more interesting, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm going to go for a question here that's not on the list, but I was thinking as you were talking about this, Cat. So the shifting and evolving crew of the You Sexy thing might be characterized as a found family on a small spaceship in a universe sort of bouncing between planets. I'm not going to mention a show that gets way too much mention for having only one season and one movie. But besides that, what were your inspirations in creating a small group of characters on a semi-episodic sort of building story running across your universe?
It very much a series that ran for considerably longer, which is Farscape.
Thank you.
I love Farscape, and Moya. I think certainly is a seed for You Sexy thing. But
yeah,
no, I love that
ships.
series. Yeah.
So to expand on that, what were your inspirations in making the You Sexy thing and their crew your own, and kind of also, I mean, you start off as military, but they're basically ex-military foodies on adventures.
Yeah. Well, so with You Sexy thing, part of it was I knew that I wanted this intelligent bioship, but I also wanted it to be like, do you remember the ship that they steal in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
The Heart of Gold, yes.
That's it, and it's like blacker than black, and it's just like the coolest looking ship in the world. And so I kind of, I want some aspects of that. And then the ship's personality is based on, speaking of cats, as we were earlier, based on a cat that I used to have, that I had for about 18 years, who was not a super smart cat, but was just so full of personality and kind of not mean orneriness, but just a certain amount of sort of, I will have my own way, as all cats do. But as far as the crew, I started out, I sat down to write the book, and I started with Nico, because I knew I wanted her for my captain. And then Dabri wandered in, and then other people wandered in, and there suddenly was Skidoo kind of wandering around. And so it was very much, it was written that first chunk was written very quickly, and really kind of tapping into the flow as much as I could. So none of that, like Skidoo was not planned. The Were-Lions were not really planned. They just pop in, and part of it, I think, was part of me was like, well, military fantasy, there needs to be some magic that's obvious. So yeah.
Well, it's interesting. the were-lions.
The were-lions, yes.
Cats have come up a lot today, and I find this so interesting because in both military science fiction and space opera history, cat people of some description or cats of some description that are not necessarily regular cats show up quite frequently. And I'm maybe you have a thought on why you think this is, because it is so strange to think about that we see so many cat people all over science fiction for literally like over the course of a century. So do you have any thoughts on why you think that? Why? What was so enticing about that?
I think people love cats. I mean, no. When I worked with a mud, an online game, that was like one of the species we introduced into the game, and it was because one of the other writers and I had gone and seen cats on Broadway, and we were like, oh, let's put cats in the game, and yeah, it because it was fun to write up descriptions of the cats. Cats are just fun. I mean, every book, here, I'll take a radical position and declare here and now every book would be better for the addition of a cat somewhere in it.
Or any game. Are there any Tabaxi in your D&D game, Cat?
Oh, not... Well, there actually was... They never got to talk to him, but there was a gambler I was trying to get them to go see, and his name was Tenderpaws Skittles, and he was a Tabaxi gambler, but they never got to see him. And then I ran Tabaxi monk at one point who was followed the way of the drunken master, and really had fun with that. That was a very short-lived campaign, but it was a really good time.
Have you ever played Skyrim?
I love Skyrim.
Catchet has wares.
I have put so many hours into Skyrim that I don't, and I don't. Actually, when I moved, I lost access to like all my saved copies of the game.
Oh no!
So I don't really want to start over again, but part of me kind of does. And I think, I don't know, if there's like some point where I'm really feeling like, I don't know, depressed or worried about the world or something, I may retreat for like a week or two of Skyrim, depending on what happens.
Yeah, I mean, for stress and for relaxation, for a while, N.K. Jemisin would regularly go on her stream. I was a mod on her stream, and she would go into Skyrim and collect cheese and put cheese in her house.
Oh yeah.
That's it. She wouldn't go fight anything. She wouldn't go into bed. She would just collect cheese, all the cheese she could. It was hilarious.
I would just run around. I mean, I'd like particularly, like you're running around at night in Skyrim and people.
Oh, it's so gorgeous. I mean, it's heartbreakingly gorgeous. I'm a landscape photographer. It's like, oh my God, where's this place been all my life?
My first time playing it, I think, if I'm correct, it's the game I'm thinking of. I think I just was a kleptomaniac and just was stealing everything I could get my hands on. Because I didn't understand the mechanics. All I was thinking was like, well, it's there, so just take it. Not realizing people would get mad at you.
Oh yeah. No, I think like my first game, I kicked a chicken and all the village got angry at me because I didn't realize it was somebody's chicken, and I was just, you're just testing out the game mechanics. And
you realize the game kicks back.
You do. Yeah. But I'll tell you, Skyrim was the source of one of the greatest heartbreaks of my life, which was that I got a VR set because I was so excited I was going to play Skyrim VR and was going to feel like I was, like creeping through the tunnels, shooting the Draugr or whatever. I get incredibly sick in virtual reality. It just, and there's studies show that women actually have this happen to them more in VR than men do.
Huh.
Oh lordy.
That's interesting.
So yes, that was very sad. What I saw of VR was super cool, though, right? And then I was like, I have to take these off because
I'm gonna throw up.
Yeah, I think my motion sickness would kill me, so it's not going to be for me.
Yeah.
Oh, but we've gotten into the weeds. Shaun, do you want to bring us back to our questions?
I do want to ask a style question. You had mentioned, that and Lucky casually suggesting writing a space opera in an omniscient POV. There are two different things about the style that you use in this book that I kind of want to talk about. One is what feels to me like the way this book opens almost feels poetic in a way, in the way it's describing, because it's describing like Q space and the vacuum of it, like you use this line, unnecessary curlicues and furbelows and gimcracks that the universe has chosen to add. Like there's this really wonderful, fluid, almost poetic, with all of the like fun little sort of science fiction-y language that's there. And I don't know, I'm kind of curious about your process for developing that style, which probably isn't just solely unique to this book. And then I have a completely different question, which is about how you write about place that I'm curious about. But I'll start there.
Well, I think to some extent the style is part of space opera. There is that kind of there's a Cordwainer Smith story, Drunk Boat, which starts with like no one had ever gone at such distances, at such speeds, and by such an unimaginable way of doing it. And I love that kind of like start out with something kind of like grand and flowery and covered with curlicues. So yeah, that's what I was doing there.
Interesting. Did that come naturally, or did you find that you had to like channel it in some special way?
I think that just sort of came out when I was writing. I mean, and I don't think it came out like in the first. I think it actually was something that I wrote kind of like partially through the process of writing it, and then was like, ooh, this will make a nice beginning, and then tucked it into the beginning.
So then my related question, which is also a kind of stylistic, which is about the kind of way that you describe places throughout the book, especially like when we get to Coralline, the first time you describe it in the book, it has this, it's technically like an info dump, but the way it reads is almost like a traveler is describing it to you to some degree. And so it, in a way, does not feel like an info dump. The only reason I thought info dump was like I sat down and thought like, what is this section actually doing? Because I was trying to be analytical. But in the process of reading it, I had this feeling of, I felt like someone was like giving me a travel diary or giving me something.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of curious about, I suppose, thinking of this in a couple different ways, is this some convention of space opera that you were playing with, or is this something about how you want to inject information for the reader that feels somewhat different in this work?
Well, I mean, part of it is you can do info dumps. I mean, you can do anything you want as long as you make it interesting. And so those moments are kind of like moments of spectacle. I mean, like when they first come to Coralline, it is gaudy and lit up and fancy, and I do want that kind of like intense visual when it first appears. But the trick is, because description stops a narrative usually. It's like the camera stops moving, and so when you are doing that kind of description, you have to be really conscious of your verbs. You have to be really conscious of the way the sentences flow, and you really have to kind of keep it feeling as though there's motion in the description.
That sounds hard to me.
especially given the point of view. Yeah, it's a high wire act you have here.
Well, I love omniscient point of view. I mean,
but a lot of people don't. So why do you like it? Because a lot of people write authors when screaming from the idea. Why do you embrace it?
You can do so. The way I think of point of view is like first person is the camera's behind the character's eyes and looking at shit, and then second person is that same sort of weird looking out from their eyes in a different way. Sorry, that's very incoherent. But like third person is basically you've got the camera, third person attached, right? And the camera is maybe it's like really close to the person, or maybe it's like 10 feet back, but it's, it's following a person around. When you are doing omniscient point of view, the camera can do whatever the fuck it wants. And you could be like, this person's thinking, and this person's thinking. And you can also, it could be like they're thinking this, and meanwhile, 5,000 parsecs away, this is happening. And it also is such a great vehicle for irony. I mean, I love these books. I have so much fun writing them, and the humor is because you can have, this character is thinking this, and this character is thinking this. The thing is doing, your sexy thing is manifesting eyeballs in the ceilings, and this is how everybody feels about it, including the thing. And it's just, it's a blast to write.
Does it also?
I concur. You do it nicely, smoothly, and you shift. You don't quite do the head hopping of Dune, but you do smoothly shift perspective through in your omniscience. So it's not quite the whiplash you get in Dune, but I think you. Let me get. Well, how many times have you read Dune, Kat?
I've read Dune. I think the official term is metric shit ton. I think it, because you read. Part of it is that when I was growing up, there was no internets, and so you reread these antiquated things known as books more than once. Sometimes
it is true. My rereading has decreased over time, partially because there's so many other distractions, also because there's many more books now. But yeah, so I mean, Dune is just like head hop after head hop after head hop. I mean, you're shifting point of view here. And where the camera is, but it feels a little. It feels more of a F1 racer, and you're just shifting gears nicely. Especially especially when you do with the twin and the false twin, and what they're thinking with when they completely don't understand each other.
Oh God! Oh, and I love that. I think that's another wonderful moment of irony. Now you have to pay attention to moving the reader, because you can, if you move them too fast or you move them with no transition, you do get, use the word whiplash, and it is disconcerting, because then the reader is paying more attention to the motion than the story, and so I have a whole class that I teach on writing omniscient point of view, and talk about the techniques for it, because it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is something that you have to pay attention to, and there's different kinds of omniscient too, right? There's I won't go into the weeds on that.
I'm willing to always go into the weeds. So one more, Shaun, and I'll go back to. So how do you feel this? I mean, Shaun and I both obviously read these in physical. I read the first two in ebook, but how do you think your approach works for audio?
I don't know. I know that Vivian Leheny, who's done the narration for the audiobooks, I have had multiple people say how much they enjoy it. So I'm sure that she's doing an amazing job, and I hope that I'm giving her something that is not too difficult to read out loud. I would have a hard time with it. I mean, like when I read it out loud, you have to do kind of like faintly different voices for the different characters. And,
right, especially if you're shifting so fast. Yeah.
And so that's difficult.
I'm sorry for being a ball hog.
No,
Shaun,
you're not a ball hog. It's all good. But you had mentioned being able to explore irony in a way that this particular point of view sort of made. I don't want to suggest you said like easier, but like different. That irony you could explore in a different way than perhaps in other forms. And I'm kind of curious if you could expand on that a little bit more, because I really want to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, I mean, so the definition of irony, as I understand it, is that you have something that can be understood in more than one way, and that's the source of the humor, is the fact that this thing can be read in different ways. And I've sort of lost the track of your question there. Could you kind of go back to the first?
Sure. Yeah. I guess thinking about how this particular omniscient POV you're using affects the way you approach irony, I guess is the real question.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I mean, it gives you that chance to, instead of kind of making the irony subtle, where one person's saying something and another person is doing something, because kind of having the conflicting meanings that way, you can be much more direct about it. And you can show those moments, those frustrating moments where a character is saying something and think they're meaning one thing, and the other person is hearing something entirely different, which is the stuff that good plot complications are often made of.
Mm-hmm.
Fun. I like it. I need to reread this now because I need to think more about this myself, like from the reader's perspective of how I experience these moments as a reader. Because I hadn't really, until you kind of brought it up, I hadn't spent a lot of time thinking about that aspect of the approach in this work. Now I need to rethink this and really yeah.
I do think often as writers, it is possible to read about something, but the best way to learn how to do it is to try and write in it and see kind of like, oh, what are the questions? What are the difficulties? What are the problems?
Yeah, the experimentation sort of helps you figure out where it just really doesn't work and where it does, and the strengths and weaknesses there are. Yeah. I appreciate that kind of coming out of this conversation about POV in particular, that we've sort of abandoned the really obnoxious conversations about like, well, never write in that POV. Like,
oh God, no, we're not gonna have that discussion.
And I think that's where some of the distaste for omniscient comes from, is because if you don't do it gracefully, then everybody in your crit group is going head hopping, and instead they should be saying, I don't think your omniscience is working in the way that you want it to, right?
Yeah, like there's the balance is off. Now we need to tip it a little bit to get it back into.
Yeah.
Because theoretically, you should not, I suppose, if you're, for the reader, that those shifts should be, I don't know that seamless is the right word, but more fluid. That when you move between them, they don't really quite notice in a way that, like, because that head hopping idea is where it feels so much like there's a jolt, like you're being shoved back and forth. That's hard thing to do.
I love the word seamless, and I think it is. You are moving the reader around within the narrative, right? They're inside this person's head, then they're inside this person's head. And as long as you can do it so smoothly that they don't notice what's going on, I think you're golden,
That's the dream.
Yeah.
Can I ask a silly question?
Shaun, if you didn't ask a silly question during this interview, I'd wonder if you were a pod person.
So in imagining space opera places, right, you're going to end up with aliens and weird stuff and like all kinds of strange things. In this case, also strange plants and weird ingredients and all that kind of stuff. As somebody writing this stuff, are you kind of personally hopeful that the universe is this flamboyant and exciting and full of weird, strange alien what's-its?
God, yes. I think that would be freaking amazing. I am one of those people that if the starship appeared and said, "Do you want to go?" I would have a very hard time saying no. I think I would be like, "Yeah, let's go," because imagine how cool the universe would be. Yeah.
Would you ask them if you could take your cats?
I would ask them. I would ask them if I could take my cats and my girlfriend. And in a different order, Sherry. It would be you first, and then the cat.
I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the universe is pretty astonishing, but we haven't found, to my knowledge, the aliens and the like weird plants and sentient rocks and all kinds of strange
no.
things.
No.
Well, and I've just been reading Mur Lafferty's Station Eternity, and I love the aliens and the humans in there because it's just like aliens start showing up on Earth and nobody's sure what to do with them. It's so great. Oh, it's just great. Yeah.
I feel like to some degree, like the approach to aliens in science fiction kind of fits into like one of two categories. The one where like the aliens aren't really like literally aliens from like a metaphorical perspective. They're really just like a foil for some part of our human. I'm not dissing that side. And then there's like the side where someone tries to make them not make sense from a human perspective altogether. And I find that those are both difficult to like master in very different ways, right? To make them truly alien without making them too, like, you can't really get too far outside of something we get attached to, because then it stops making sense.
But like Maria Doria Russell's The Sparrow, I think is a great book about the collision of the human and an alien, and making the mistake of thinking the aliens are more human than they are, right? I mean, that's a great harrowing book, right?
Or even taking something like Ted Chiang's was it Story of Your Life, which becomes Arrival, where like communication becomes, we have to figure out how to talk to these aliens who don't experience our reality the way we do.
Right.
Or Star Trek Discovery season 4, which ends where the aliens, like they've evolved so far into the future that they don't have any concept of like what it is to be like a regular humanoid organism, and they only communicate in like these pheromones that convey deep emotion. How do you think? What do you do? They figure it out.
Or Babylon 5, where we have aliens which are literally billions of years old, and just like, how do you actually communicate with this thing that can squash you like a bug?
Why should they care?
Get them to be on your side because they can. Or even, sorry, I'm a Babylon 5 nerd. Or even you have the Centauri, which look like humans a lot, but they are not human and are willing to take advantage of your misapprehensions to screw with you.
I think that's where so much interesting science fiction comes from, is from the kind of the clash of different mentalities, and I think that does reflect our experience as human beings, right? We go out and we discover many people that aren't like us, or many people who just do things differently, or open their presents on Christmas morning instead of evening, right? This is very basic cultural clashes there.
Yeah, and I guess to some degree, aliens and alien things can give us a gateway into thinking about those very real-world differences and how we navigate them and find, in an optimistic way, like common cause, as it were.
Yeah,
I see a chat. Oh, yeah, please.
Triffitt's mentioning in chat one of my very favorite series of all time, which is the Uplift War series, which is just tremendous on so many levels. But really.
I mean, humans are lonely, so humans uplift chimpanzees and dolphins, and then we find aliens, and we find aliens have done the same thing. It's universal that species want other species to talk to.
Yeah. And it's humanity's dirty secret that they have made so many species extinct, because each one was a potential intelligent race. And I think about that every once in a while.
Well, there was a study recently about like kind of, we've already kind of know this, but now the studies are getting pretty advanced, of like how much interaction Homo sapiens had with all of the other relative species around, like Neanderthals and Homo erectus and so on. And I guess now, looking at our DNA, that like increasingly humans are less just Homo sapiens, but actually intermixtures of various degrees of other hominid species.
That's it.
And it's
Well, I did 23 and me, and I have significantly more Neanderthal than most people, which seems very interesting. So I don't know.
it also suggests we're probably not really that different as previously
No,
thought. You know,
that's it. That's it.
like could they have communicated? I mean, maybe
You
to
know,
some degree, but like, could they have had some sort of common language of some kind?
yeah, it seems so possible, right?
That would be such a
Yeah.
cool time to like witness from like not literal. I don't really want to be there because it probably was really rough,
No,
but like,
no,
you know, to watch from above.
no.
You know,
Any time before, honestly, the 1970s, I just want to see from afar.
yeah, yeah. Send like a
Especially
little
our own
camera.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah. I just finished reading a time travel novel today, and yeah, it sounds cool, but yeah, there are problems in going back to that. The past is a different country, and it's full of germs and other dangers. And I best just imagine it in books rather than hoping for a real honest time machine.
Yeah, yeah.
But speaking of time,
Paul, could I
I
spitball
want
a
to
ridiculous theory real quick?
go
Yes.
ahead.
Okay. Maybe this is in no way legitimate. I'm just throwing it out there because why not? Maybe it's because of our history as Homo sapiens and our interactions with many of the other hominid species that we're so interested in aliens.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, I've heard that theory that basically we've had other hominids until relatively recently, Neanderthals, Denisovans, a few others. Even Homo erectus lasted longer than you think, but I mean it's only been in the last 30,000, not even 30,000 years that we've been the one and only.
Yeah.
I mean we usually have had cousins in the hominids running around, cousins who think differently, act differently, might be kind of related, but definitely are not people.
Yeah, but they got great eyebrows.
But they got great eyebrows.
Okay, I'm sorry, Paul. Please.
So now I have a. It's not a silly question, it's a silly way of me putting it. Okay, Kat. Space paladins, threat, menace, or opportunity?
I think opportunity for sure. And that actually came out of, I don't know if, Paul, you saw some of the game that kind of inspired that, which was the Esper Genesis game.
Yes. So you took it from there. Aha! I might have known.
Yep. Roxana and Petra have a lot in common.
I should have guessed. For listeners, Esper Genesis was a tabletop role playing game over on Arvin Elron's Twitch channel that Kat was a long player of, which I watched and modded avidly. Yeah, basically space science fantasy.
The game went for like 4 years, I think, overall. I mean, it was just a hell of a campaign. Yeah.
So here we have a paladin in training. So versus a full-on paladin, and she doesn't quite know all the ins and outs, especially when she starts getting sick, when she starts to lie. So I want to talk about developing basically a new. It's like almost like a character taking a multi-classing and finding the multi-class has its problems. So I wonder if you want to talk about character development and design that way, or in general, because you have a lot of evolving characters throughout this series, but in particular, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think one of the things I love about Atlanta is she's very much trying to find her place in things. Mm-hmm. And in, book 2, she kind of thinks she's found her place, and now she's finding that place is kind of weirder and stranger and more inconvenient than she had thought it would be. And I had so much fun writing the section where she finally realizes that she can't lie without getting sick, which of course other people figure out before she does, which I just had a lot of fun with that.
I did too. Let's see what else. So speaking of going back to earlier books, one thing I found interesting is that you have a recap at the beginning of this book,
yes,
which I don't find as often in books as as I might like. So was that your idea, the publisher's idea?
That's always I try and do that in all of my books, and the publisher always pushes back, and I always say people have written in to tell me how much they appreciate that. So I will say to people who appreciate that, please write in and say that you appreciated that, so I can keep on saying that to the publisher. Because I do reread a lot, and particularly if it's a series that I love, I'll go back and reread the stuff, before the new book. But life's kind of short, and not everybody wants to do that. I mean, I don't want to do that every time. And it's just, it's polite. It's polite to give a little recap beforehand, I think.
Thank you, because it's been a while since I read The Devil's Gun, particularly. It's like, oh, what happened? What's happening? Yeah. And The Devil's Gun kind of lurks, the actual object kind of lurks in the background of this book. Yeah. One thing I appreciate about this series is kind of like that, as I kind of like with characters, kind of the shifting in and out of focus, almost like you have a very interesting depth of field of characters and plots going on in your books, and in each of the books kind of shifts that in and out a bit. And I really appreciate that, because the whole subplot line with their Pirate King friend Tubal Last is kind of like the sword of Damocles hanging over their head since book one. It's like, eventually that's going to come crashing down. But in the meantime, they have interesting misadventures, and you have these characters developing. You have a clone of a character who's definitely not a duplicate of his clone.
Why did you do this to me? Yes,
he resents his own, which I never thought of before. Like someone resenting being made a clone. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Like, why would you make me?
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true. The only but in a slightly different way, the other person I can think of like that is Mark from the Warkazagan series. But he's less angsty about it, and it's figuring out, what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a good. I mean, that's you want to explore kind of like questions of humanity. I mean, and a clone where you're kind of like, what is my purpose? I mean, that is, I think, I would like to think a question that resonates for a lot of people. I mean, like, what is my purpose in life? I too would like to know this.
You don't know yet?
Well, I know what my cats think it is.
Yeah, that's a different thing, as they say.
Deliverer of food and pets.
That's it.
Well, it's an interesting concern. Clones, I guess, in science fiction in particular, have kind of strange history because there's always the question of, like, is the clone actually its own person? Is it just you? Right. What is a person? And then there's always, like, the terrifying, like, does the clone going to replace me? And those kinds of questions. Or I suppose you take, was it multiplicity, where every time he clones himself, the clones get slightly less good? Is it multiplicity, I think?
Yeah, there's degradation. Yeah, that makes me think of David Brin's Kiln People.
Kiln People.
Yes.
Yes, which is absolutely amazing. I think that I think that it's got to be a really tough thing to have this thing that you were made to do and have all these expectations placed on you. And so that's one of the things that I think I've really tried to play with in this book, is sort of the collision between Talon, who's like, oh, I've replaced my brother, here's my brother again, and this clone who's just like, I am not your fucking brother. I am, and I think, I don't know, I think that's something a lot of people will identify with, that sort of the outside trying to push you into a role that you might not be comfortable with. And at the same time, they're very similar. I mean, that's one of the reasons why they both, there's a separate passages where each of them tries to run off, and Jesley is like, come back, boys. And you know, they're doing exactly the same thing because they are very similar. They have very similar ways of doing things, and at some point I would hope they're going to realize that.
Well, and that's part of like the human experience too, when you have somebody that is like you're like a literal brother or even a literal twin, where you go through this moment where you're like, but I am actually not the same, right? I am different, and I must differentiate myself, even if there are many ways in which we're very much the same. On an amusing note, we found out recently that my phone will open to my brother's face.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So it can't tell us apart, which if you see us together, we do look very similar, but we are different. But the phone can't tell. So he's opened my phone a few times with his face.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of problems with that facial recognition stuff because it was all, most of the training data was white people. So it has trouble with people of color. And so, yeah, I guess Kroger was just saying that they're planning on implementing facial recognition, and then they're going to tailor the prices to the person, which, that's kind of weird. I'll send you the link. It's Kroger is implementing this facial recognition system where they'll be tracking customers, and it's a way of getting surge pricing in, but they're talking about also kind of tailoring the pricing to the people.
Yeah, that won't end in racism or anything.
Red alert. Yeah, I'm not liking that idea at all.
No.
Yeah.
But I go into my Kroger here, and then they don't have that, but they have. Is it Kroger? Yes, but they have a little stock robot, and so it kind of like wheels around the store and looks at the shelves, and I think tracks when items are low. But it also makes this very distinctive sort of like whoop, and I love to watch people that have never encountered it before. And you can kind of like, you go at the end of the aisle and you wait till that robot's down at the bottom, and you'll just see somebody will come along and they will have never expected this, and just go bleep, and they will just like, wah! And it's great. It is awesome.
That's probably the correct response, though, because I don't know how comfortable I am with like robots. Like I feel like a Roomba is about as far as I can go.
Well, so this robot just looks like basically a long pole on like a triangular base. So if it was going to try to kill you, all it could do is just like run into you repeatedly. And so like, I think the robots that you really want to worry about are the ones that have like arms possibly ending in like saw hands and stuff like that.
Oh, there's a movie about this. A bunch of teenagers, like, I guess technically stay overnight in a mall they're not supposed to. And I can't remember where the robots come from, but they're like these robots that like get like saws and all kinds of things on them and like killing them. They're like like a police robot or something that like goes ballistic and murders everyone. Yeah. It's utterly ridiculous.
Well, did you see, there's an episode of Black Mirror, I forget what the title was, but it's basically the woman being chased down by the robotic mechanism that is
Metalhead.
Oh, that was a scary one.
Oh my God. Oh, I mean, when I've seen this stuff about robotic hunting dogs and stuff, I was thinking, oh God, you're making the Torment Nexus, you're making the Black Mirror come to life episode come to life. Stop it.
Yeah. I mean, I already know if a human could make a murder bot, they would do it because
oh God.
Because they made those like fun like military dog robots, right? That like slip on bananas and things. But the moment someone said, "What if we put a big machine gun on its back and shot the machine?" I was like, "Oh nope, yeah, they would do it. They wouldn't even ask a question. They'd turn Skynet on in a minute."
Go back to the 1980s. Kat, did you ever play the board game Ogre?
Yes, I played a lot of Ogre. Yes, Ogre was intelligent tanks.
Right. Okay. For those who don't know, and Shaun clearly doesn't know, Ogre was a hex board game in the 1980s where basically you one side had a bunch of humans and missile tanks and GEVs and stuff, and the other side was one unit, a massive robotic tank, and these were even odds.
Yep.
Yeah, and the ogres were scary and frightening.
They were.
And completely controlled by computers.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I want that
Yeah,
game.
I know. You're now Googling it, Sean. Yes.
I am. I want to see if I can buy it.
I know there's a not so great computer game version of it, but yeah, I know they've had Kickstarters for versions of it and stuff. Yeah, Ogre. I played a lot of Ogre back in the day.
I think Steve Jackson. I know it was done by Steve Jackson Games, and I think they still have it available.
I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, I can buy it. The 6th edition's on Amazon for $49.81. A very specific price, but there you go. So yeah, you can in fact get it. Oh, that sounds really interesting to play. So I may have to check that out.
I mean, it's a really interesting from a how. I mean, remember this came out decades before we talked about putting AI or drones, and it was really prescient.
Like the same era that War Games came out. If you remember,
that's a good comp. Yes, the movie.
Computer technology there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exciting. Well, I'm gonna get that when I talk to my wife, and
you get Ogre, I will play it with you, Sean.
There you go.
It's been a while, but we'll see how we can go with that. Let's see.
Okay, so let's shift back to the book because we've talked your head off about other nonsense, although it's fun. But switch us back to the book here. So I kind of want to ask another style-related question, except I want to ask it by talking about character instead. Because in having this point of view, right, you get to get into quite a number of characters' heads. And in a lot of other points of view, often it's maybe, even in most third persons, it might be like 2, maybe 3. In first person, usually just 1. And so to kind of move, I mean, it's not like you have an absurd number of characters, but to be able to move through quite a number of them, what is the task like in, I guess, trying to keep them, to kind of go to what we were a little bit talking about, kind of keep them unique while being able to move between them so that when you're not doing the thing where accidentally you write a character and like Nico sounds like another character.
Oh, yeah. Well, the characters are very distinct in my head. In fact, these, I've heard of authors talking to their characters before, and I've always gone, oh, that's kind of, woo, whatever. And actually, these characters I do talk to in my head, and they are much more better realized. So suddenly, I'm very sorry for making fun of those writers. So that's very helpful that I do have a clear idea of their personalities. But man, they're so distinct. I think the closest I've come, and I felt really bad about this, was I had a new editor for this book. And when I was writing, I think when I was in the middle of just like a furor of writing, I'd actually put Thorn instead of Talon in a whole bunch of it. And so this was a new editor who hadn't read the previous books yet. And so she was like, I don't understand, like what's going on with this name flickering back and forth. And so I'm kind of, it's actually useful for me that one of the twins is gone, because they were the two characters that were the ones that might have overlapped more than any others. Everybody else is pretty distinctive to me.
Interesting. Okay. Paul, it's your turn. I'm throwing it back to you. Sorry.
So tell me about all the different kinds of your world building. This is a world building question because I have to talk about world building, and I've been neglected about it. But tell me about all the different gardens you came up with. On the asteroid, and I mean you got one that's basically just chocolate heaven. So
well, that was the fun part of coming up with it, was kind of, and so I did kind of sit down one afternoon and just list as many kind of possible variants, right? I kind of come up with a dozen of these different confluences, and then tried to kind of make them fit what was going on. But of course, there had to be a chocolate confluence, because how could there not be? That would be a tragedy.
we see a bunch of them in the book. How many did you kind of have, at least in some vague form, that we didn't see in the book? How many did you actually come out detailing?
I'm
curious about your winnowing process.
I came out with a couple dozen, and winnowed down. So actually, I should put those up in a blog or something. Some of
that would be interesting. It's like
I'll make a note to do that.
Because this is like a structuring world building question. Like, did you grow from? Do you come up with gardens as you needed them, or did you come up with a whole set and decide which ones would make the cut for the book?
So, like, a couple of them did come to me while I was writing. Like, Jesley takes Nico to the Remembrance confluence at one point, and that was sort of, I wrote, and that came to me as I was writing. And then when Skidoo takes Talon to the underwater one, that was just like, here, I'll start writing and see where this goes. But the fish, do you remember the scene with the fish that sort of menace Atlanta? Like, she feeds one of them, and then those are the squirrels from my backyard. Because last year I started feeding them, and I always had, walnuts in my pockets. Squirrels get fucking ferocious if they come to think they are entitled to walnuts, and so they would start like charging me. And it's not that I'm terrified of this little animal, like 1/300th my weight or whatever it is, but I didn't want this little animal to bite me and then for me to have to capture said little animal in order to avoid having rabies shots. So it actually, there was a period of about 3 months where I was like, I didn't like going in the backyard, and then a neighbor cat moved in, and now he patrols the backyard, and there's no more persnicketiness from the squirrels. Did
you by any chance during the COVID times, Mark Rober, the YouTuber, did these he got stuck in the house, and so he was like started birding, and then he put up like a bird feeder, and then the squirrels. Yeah, okay, so you know what I'm talking about, where he was like, well, I want to see what the squirrels can do, because everything I tried to do to keep them out of the bird feeder, they could seem to get it. So he built this obstacle course.
They're amazing.
And then he did all of this amazing like research on how squirrels can land on their feet, and like looked at slow-mo video of them. Squirrels are amazing.
Squirrels are wild, and the squirrels liked it. Like, they were like, clearly, like they would go and like do the obstacle course just for the hell of it, right? I mean, they were having, and he had so much fun. Like, there was a tiny squirrel escape room with it. It just, oh my God, they were fat. Those are fat. Those are worth, people should look those up on YouTube.
He's got 2, I think. I don't know if he's done a third one yet, but it was really fun.
Just put in squirrel obstacle course, and that will get you to it, I'm pretty sure.
It's very informative, and you'll just pretend it's fun and informative, which I think is why I like Mark Rober. So yeah, he has fun. Well, we gotta wind down.
We do.
I'm so sorry, but the life.
Alas, alack.
It is. So the first of our wind down questions is a kind of obvious one, which is what you kind of already told us, but like what are you working on next?
I just turned in a standalone fantasy novel to my agent, and we'll see what happens with that. And I just turned in the last Tibet novel. So right now I am running around the house going, I finished 2 books. But I'm also working on the next space opera, which will follow the plot line with Dabry and his daughter.
Oh,
okay.
That's very fun.
I mean, we didn't get into the whole overarching how do you manage a series like that, but I guess we'll have to talk about that when we come back here for the fourth
there we go
thing book.
Oh, I guess I'll give you the last one. Do you want to go do it, Paul? You do it.
I didn't have
it's not written here. It's just like where people find you. That's that question.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Where can people find me? I'm on most social media as Cat Rambo. I have a shiny new website that's only a couple of months old because it just got revamped at catrambo.com. Please check it out and sign up for my newsletter if you're interested. I run an online writers community called the Rambo Academy for Wayward Writers. You can find that on Patreon. And most social media, I'm Cat Rambo, except for Instagram, where I am SpecFic. I think because I lost the Cat Rambo login and have never been able to recover it.
Oh.
Oh no. Oh
Yeah,
no.
it happens.
And of course you do things like show up on Arvin's stream and play games and stuff.
I do.
So.
I do. I play a lot of games. I am been playing D&D since I was 12 or 13, and I will. Yeah, I'm playing in a D&D game right now that people that I played with in high school are in, which is
Wow,
I'm
that's
actually
wild.
shouting to them because that is just a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Paul needs breaks from me when he runs games for me.
Yeah, you are a difficult person to GM for. I will just say that aloud for the universe.
I get into it. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, you get into it, all right.
Come on,
God.
you know you like Calamity Buttons. He's your favorite character.
What character class is Calamity Buttons?
So it's in Cats of Cthulhu.
Okay.
And he is like he's basically like a prophet cat who lives in a mausoleum and periodically breaks out into musical numbers.
I love it.
Yeah, I have way too much fun just being this adorable cat. Calamity Buttons is great. Triffid, who's in chat.
What about your Breen diplomat?
The Breen diplomat in our Star Trek game? Yeah. Who is secretly trying to... I won't say what I'm secretly trying to do. Never mind.
I know what you're secretly trying to do.
You do, but someone in chat doesn't.
Oh. Okay. Yes. The person who's in that game. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
I just thought being a Breen was really fun because it's like until they brought the Breen back, there basically is like nothing about the Breen. So like I can do whatever I within some reason do whatever I want.
That the GM will allow.
Yes, what the GM will allow. But like I just find that really freeing from like, if I play a Vulcan, I gotta be like gotta be a Vulcan all the time, you know?
Yeah.
So I've been having a lot of fun. He speaks in Temerian, you know, where they speak in metaphors. So like he speaks that language.
I love that.
Yeah. I have a lot of fun.
Darmok and Jihad.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Well, Kat, it's been great to have you back. It's wonderful.
Yes, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for bringing me on because I deeply appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And, we love you, Kat.
Oh, that is so nice of you. I really appreciate it. And it has been a delight. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Let us know when the Tibet book comes out because then
I will.
We should get you back for that because I think the first Tibet was the one we interviewed you for.
I think it might have been. So yes, we definitely. So I'll let you know when that's coming out.
Cool. All right.
Awesome.
So for folks at home, that's it. If you'd like to let us know what you thought about this episode or you've read Kat's books and you want to be like, oh my God, I love them so much. Don't email us if you didn't like them because I don't care. You can go to skiffingfanty.com/listener suggestions or skiffingfanty@gmail.com. We are Skiffingfanty on most social media sites, and it's probably just easy to go to our Linktree, linktr.ee/Skiffingfanty, which has like every link under the sun for us. We're obviously at skiffingfanty.com and a bunch of other places. We have a newsletter, there's a Patreon, all kinds of stuff. So please let folks know about us. Me, I'm at ShaunDuke.net, and then I am here 7 p.m. every Friday Central for Skiffing Fanty stuff, at least for the time being, which is Alphabet streams for live. I have Patreon. I'm on all sorts of social places. My Linktree /ShaunDuke.
Awesome.
And you can find me, Paul Weimer, across the internet as Prince Justin with a V, PRINCJVSTIN. I do book reviews, I podcast, I stream, I share photography. I am way too much for most people, but I somehow am still spreading my way across the internet.
Awesome.
All right, as required by the Skiffing Fanty bylaws, I must make this awkward. And so, Paul, you have been periodically drinking from something today, correct?
Yes.
So little
Yes.
do you know that I have had a genetically engineered virus placed in that cup today, which will slowly turn you into a very subservient cat. So by next time, you will be in my lap, Paul.
Oh, dear God in heaven. Cat, help!
The cat kind of wants to see it happen. It sounds kind of fun.
Yeah.
And on that note, awkward ending and scene.
The spice must flow.